an important part of your practice regimen should be doing full practice tests. But of course, in order to know how we did on that test, we need to know how to grade it or how to score it. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to score any SAT that you do at home, whether it's a Blue Book SAT or an SAT the College Board has released on their website or whatever it might be. So first thing you need to do is download this sheet. It's on my website. Link is in the description. You don't necessarily need to use this, but it's just useful to have so you can organize your information and just kind of follow all the steps. But you can always use a piece of paper if you want. So go ahead and get this sheet. The next thing you need to do, of course, is take the test. Once you've taken the test, you're going to go through each section, math, critical reading, and writing in each section within that, and figure out how many right questions you got, how many wrong you got, and how many omits. So for instance, for this math section, let's say the sections were 2, 6, and 9. And let's say in section 2, you go back and check your answers. You got 15 right, 4 wrong, and 1 omit. Then you got a 9 right, 6 wrong, and 3 omits. And then 10 right, 4 wrong, 2 omits. For a total, now we add these up, we're going to get 34 right, 14 wrong, and 6 omits. And notice when you get this final total, these questions should always add up to 54 because there's always 54 math questions. So you can see, indeed, in this example, it does. Once you've got your totals, now you complete the next step, which is to figure out what your raw score is. So first, you put in your corrects here. So we had 34 correct. Now we're going to subtract the wrong number of questions times 0.25, because remember, you get a quarter point off for every question you get wrong. So when you put an answer down and it's not right, not only do you get no credit, but you lose an extra quarter point. The omits don't factor in here at all. We just put the omits in this column to make sure all the bookkeeping works out, that you've accounted for every question. But the omits don't factor into the scoring at all. So here we had 14 wrong. So I pull out my calculator, and I do 14 times 0.25. And I get 3.5. So I go ahead and put that in here. And then I do the subtraction. So this is going to be 30.5. Now this is not a raw score because we need it to be a integer. We need it to be a whole number. So basically we have to round now, and the guidelines are, the regular rounding guidelines, but just in case you forget, you're going to round up if it's 0.5 or 0.75, and you're going to round down if it's 0.25. So actually, if you only lose 1 or 2 points, or 1 or 2 questions wrong, you're still going to round up as if you had never missed those questions. So here we're actually going to round up to 31, because 30.5 rounds up to 31. So in some sense, those last 2 questions we got wrong that took us from a 31 to a 30.5 don't count in terms of hurting us any further. Okay, so take that 31, and we'll work with that in a second. Let's just do the critical reading. So let's imagine critical reading was 4, 7, and 8. And let's imagine we had these scores. So 19, 5, and 0, 16, 7, and 1, 12, 6, and 1. And now we total them. And we do that, we get 47, 18, and 2. And now we complete the next step, right? So the number of corrects was 47. The number of wrong was 18. So now we go ahead and do 18 times 0.25. 18 times 0.25. I guess it's 4.5. And now we should actually erase that, make this 4.5. And now we're going to get, what is that, 42.5. We do that subtraction. And now we need to round, so we're going to round this up to 43, and that's our critical reading raw score. Finally, the writing. Now, the grammar multiple choice is what we're focusing on here. The essay I'll talk about in a second. All right, so let's imagine for this, the sections were 3 and 10. Remember, you're going to have one omitted section. You're going to have one experimental section that's not going to be in your practice test, so don't be alarmed here. We don't have a section 5. We can just assume that that was the practice, the experimental section. On your real SAT, of course, you will, but it won't count towards your score. So let's see here. It's 31, 4, and none. And then we've got 13 and 1 and none. So our totals are 44 right and 5 wrong. So we had 44 correct. Now we're going to do our 5 times 0.25. 5 times 0.25. Yeah, 1.25. Subtract that, we're going to get 42.75. And of course, this is going to round up to 43. And that's going to be our writing raw score. Now for the essay, of course, is something that's very difficult for you to grade. There is the grading option I offer in the members area of my site, where I'll grade any essay you send me. If that's not an option for you, then you can maybe try to find someone else to grade it for you. I kind of advise against having a fellow student grade it, because it's kind of, in order to grade the essay, you need to know what exactly the SAT is looking for, and try to find someone who knows, whether it's me or somebody else, who knows how to grade the essays and knows what they're looking for, just to give you the most accurate score you can get. Let's imagine in this example I got an 8. I got a 4. That would be a 4 and a 4. 2 graders giving it a 4 each. So I got an 8 out of 12. Once we have our raw scores, now we go to the test score conversion table to get the scaled score. Usually this is going to be at the end of the test, after the answer key. In the Blue Book, a number of the tests are exact. Some, if it's not an exact test, like if it's a Blue Book practice test that actually hasn't been administered as an SAT, in that case, you're going to be given score ranges. So you just have to kind of imagine, okay, if it were in the middle, it would be like this. But here you can see we have exact scores, and that's usually what you're going to find on most SAT practice tests. If you do find the range, you can just kind of get a general idea of where you're at. Remember, each test has its own score conversion table, so don't use a table for a different test, because the table itself depends on that particular test, whether it was harder or easier than average. Okay, so let's see. For this test, my raw score for math was 31, so I look on the table, and I find 31. It's over here. So for this particular test, I got a 550. And for the critical reading, we had a 43. So I look at the 43. It's right here. Critical reading is this column, I believe. So that's our 580 for the critical reading. And for the writing, we got a 43. So you can get the writing multiple choice scale score. So if you don't have the essay, you can at least have an idea of where you are in the writing range, even if you don't have the essay score. So look at our 43, and we're at about a 68. So that's about, a 680, depending on the score you get for the essay. Let's assume in this case we had an 8. So what you do now is you look for your 43 on this other composite score table, and you find your 43, and you find your 8 column, and then you match them up. So you see here we got a 660. So a pretty good approximation in terms of how close it was to the just the writing scaled score, multiple choice scaled score. And that's all it is to it. So you just basically count up your rights and wrongs, do the little math, find your raw scores, match them to the table, and that's it. If you have any questions, let me know. Again, the links to the table and to the sheet are in the description. Let me know if you have any questions. Talk to you soon.